I am rising to speak in favour of the amendment made by the Leader of the Green Party, member for Fredericton-South, as we debate this closure motion. And I do find it quite disappointing that we keep ending up back here debating closure motions. This is unfortunately a trend that has developed. And I hear both the official opposition and the government members saying, well, they did it first, well, it doesn't make it right. And yeah, I would agree it doesn't make it right just because the previous government established a pattern or there's that trend of sitting fewer days, trying to rush through a lot of legislation in a short period of time, and then bringing in closure motions to limit the amount of debate because the government wants to get their business through, because it shows a disregard for the legislative process. Because, Mr. Speaker, what that means is there are bills that don't get debated in a fulsome way. There are bills that don't make their way through committee as they should. And we were elected to do just that, Mr. Speaker. I keep hearing references from the mover of the motion, from the Premier on the radio this morning even, saying things like, oh, well, people are standing up and saying things and wanting to debate. Yes. That's exactly what we're doing. That's our job here. That's what we were elected to do, to come and debate these issues and to ask questions and to make amendments and to try to improve the legislation, try to pass good legislation. And there are legitimate concerns about some of this legislation, Mr. Speaker. And so I will say I'm glad that Bill 46 has been removed from this closure motion. That leaves 8 other pieces of legislation in the closure motion, Mr. Speaker, and several of them are at committee stage or haven't even made it to committee yet, Mr. Speaker. That is unacceptable. That is absolutely unacceptable and shows disregard for the legislative process. We can be better than that, Mr. Speaker. One thing that happens, even just with the threat of closure, is that there are people that may not get the chance to speak, that there are questions that may not get asked, Mr. Speaker. And the closure motion is basically circumventing the processes that are there to ensure that we debate the bill in principle at second reading, that we ask questions, that there's a chance to make amendments to the legislation. And we keep seeing legislation that comes forward that then the government needs to bring back and make more amendments to because they rush it through the first time, or they're even bringing amendments when it comes to committee. We can't miss those opportunities. There are sometimes even, I know there's a bit of disdain for going through the committee process, but I can remember at 9 p.m. one night, there was a typo identified in a bill, and there was an amendment that the government brought forward to fix it. This is like even just small things like that. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, there's really important legislation here. I'm extremely concerned about Bill 40. It's further entrenching and privatizing healthcare in our province. Bill 45 is still not done at committee, allowing minister to override the bylaws of elected officials. Unfortunately, 39 has gone through, taking away elected members, taking away the right to vote for elected members to regional health boards. It's unacceptable, Mr. Speaker, that we have this approach that has become a trend, that has become entrenched in our legislature. And I didn't hear a great defense. I felt like it was an embarrassing attempt to defend this closure motion, Mr. Speaker, saying, oh, well, people are just passing time. again, I keep using this word disregard because it's as if the legislative process is an inconvenience to government. They just want it out of the way. Okay, we just have to get through it, Mr. Speaker. And that is very concerning to me, especially as we have anti-democratic bills taking away local representation, the power of local representatives or local representatives altogether, undermining linguistic rights in one of those cases. Actually, you could argue in multiple cases. And once again, Mr. Speaker, just because, oh, well, the previous government did it, doesn't make it right. We should spend the time we need to spend. If that means we're here next week, then let's do it. We're ready to show up and do the work, Mr. Speaker. And that is why, while we are not happy to be seeing another closure motion, we are trying to amend it to add more hours, Mr. Speaker, to add hours to allow for more deliberation, to allow for debate, to allow for questions, to allow for amendments. I would love to see witnesses as well. That's something that we would really like to see at Economic Policy Committee, but here we are, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, I have spoken in favor of this this amendment while not being in favor of this motion. And, Mr. Speaker, especially because we are dealing with other really important bills, I would like, Mr. Speaker, to request unanimous consent to remove bills 40 and 45 from the motion.